About that and the current scale of the operation with RT's Daniel Bushell.
Russia's ramped up its anti-terror attacks ever since the plane crash over the Sinai Peninsula was confirmed as being caused by a terrorist bomb. Let's have a look at how that translates in practice. In just one day, we've seen hundreds of targets hit, compared to 14 by the US-led coalition on Tuesday. Over the course of the Russian campaign, that's 48 days so far, that translates into thousands of target hits, almost double what the US and France have hit in over a year of fighting.
Yeah, when you see the stats like that, it really spells it out, doesn't it? New equipment's being introduced here, and it's large-scale equipment too, isn't it? Take us through some of that for the untechnical.
Well, it's not just about quantity, indeed. So for the first time in this conflict, we're seeing strategic bombers being used, such as the Tu-160, which is considered the largest in the world in terms of both military aircraft and the largest supersonic fighter. It's also known as the White Swan.
Huge plane,
so, yes, it's a key part of Russia's nuclear triad, though it's not using its nuclear potential in this battle. Now, another advantage is its range. It can fly straight from the Caucasus, from a military base in the North Caucasus, to hit targets. It's already hit targets in the provinces of Deir ez-Zor, Raqqa, Idlib and Aleppo. However, for security reasons, the exact route from the Caucasus to Syria is being kept secret.
Vladimir Putin's order for the Russian military to intensify its air campaign in Syria then followed this week's results of that investigation into the downed Russian charter plane in Egypt at the end of October on the 31st. The tragedy in the Sinai deserts claimed the lives of 224 people, including 25 children. Let's take a look at the conclusions of the Russian security service. Russia's already carried out more airstrikes in Syria in 1.5 months than American and French air forces combined in more than a year. The country's top diplomat made clear that Russia will defend its citizens in every way possible.
The
act of terror over Sinai was an attack on Russian citizens, which amounts to an attack on the Russian state. We will exercise our right to self-defense by all means possible. Political, military and through national security services.
Meantime, Russia and France have agreed to coordinate their military operations in Syria. It comes, of course, after both France and Russia fell prey to deadly terrorist attacks within the past month. The US President Barack Obama stated he would also welcome cooperation with Russia. Security analyst and expert Charles Shoebridge explains why coordinating multinational efforts is so important right now.
It's a very, very congested airspace that absolutely requires some kind of coordination. And it's interesting to me today that not only has Putin announced very publicly this very public cooperation, indeed coordination with France, but also behind the scenes it would appear that America, for example, today has said that, has publicly acknowledged that, as indeed was necessary, that Russia is in effect working together with the US via its Qatar bases, its control centre there, if only to avoid these kind of conflicts that could happen if different forces, different aircraft are operating in the same space without coordination. It doesn't mean to say they're jointly selecting targets, which seems to be the suggestion that's going to happen with France and with Russia, but it does mean at least that a coordinated international operation on a very grand scale is actually now coming into focus.
On the ground now in Syria, the government army enjoys air support then from Russia, as highlighted, as it fights terrorists across the country. In the latest offensive, a number of areas in Aleppo province were reclaimed. RT's Lizzie Phelan reports next from Damascus.
Most recently, we followed the Syrian army operations in the province of Aleppo, where they secured the most significant victory against the Islamic State, cutting a 3-year-long siege of the Paris military airbase in the eastern Aleppo countryside. And since that airbase was liberated, the advance continues. They've retaken several towns and villages and are progressing towards cutting off the supply lines of militants, including the Islamic State and Jabhat al-Nusra, al-Qaeda in Syria, from Aleppo to Damascus. We filed this report from the area. Over the last 24 hours or so, the army has continued to make significant progress in the eastern Aleppo countryside. They've retaken several towns and villages, including the strategically important town of Al-Hadar, which is very close to the Damascus to Aleppo highway. After Al-Hadar, and even closer to that highway, fell Al-Ais. Most of the houses are still intact, and the army says that's because the terrorists from Al-Qaeda in Syria, Jabhat al-Nusra, retreated very fast, and they put up very little resistance, indicating that they knew that they had little chance of winning this battle. We don't have a lot of time in this area because al-Nusra aren't very far away, and every now and again they're firing mortars towards us. We're just waiting to go to the top of the hill to get a better view of the town, but it's still being mortared by al-Nusra, so we have to go. We're in a big group of journalists, so we have to wait to go two at a time because it's safer for us. But at the moment we're actually leaving and waiting to come back because they started firing towards us, and the army is firing back at them to try to protect our group. The mortars didn't stop coming, and we didn't make it to the top of the hill. Just 2 days later, Lebanese photo and video journalist Mohammed Nazar did, but he didn't make it back down. While doing his job, he was fatally hit by a mortar. For now, the army's progress may seem to be rapid, but it's far from secure. They face an enemy strongly entrenched in the region that benefits from the nearby porous border with Turkey, from where they can stock up on supplies and thousands more fighters. Lizzie Phelan, RT, Aleppo.
The UK Prime Minister David Cameron has said that British military action in Syria would be legal even if it was not supported by the UN Security Council.